I'm pretty sure in a past life I was a tree, and I changed my name to Bodhi. Come sit under the Bodhi tree with me. Okay, here we go. I'm sitting in a really beautiful, like in a meadow. It's like a big field in Sweden at this lovely like center kind of called Angsbacka. And it's so lovely here. It's like this beautiful little Swedish, like kind of like, it's like a summer camp vibe. It's like a little retreat center kind of. And yeah, they have this 7-week festival season where they have back-to-back festivals every week and then a few days in between. And I'm doing some body work here. And yeah, it's like I finally fucking have some space. I've been so full for the last 8 months or so. It's actually been like really, really full on. I've been moving through a lot of different things. That's taken a lot of my mental space, which has been amazing and beautiful, a lot within the world of relationships and communication and my own, cleaning my own bullshit out that I've been holding on to. And I'm still in a wonderful process within that, but I feel like there seems to be like a reprise and I have some spaciousness. So I'd like to start, diving back into the podcast and doing the Lord's work. You know what I mean? Okay. So that's a little update from my little human. And welcome to the show. This is Under the Bodhi Tree. I'm Bodhi now. That's it. That's who I am. And I was just in the States for a few weeks, and it was so interesting seeing people who knew me when I was Sam. And it just actually feels kind of like an old shell. It's actually quite interesting to like feel the difference in my body has changed quite a bit. And yeah, and so here we go. Welcome to the show. This week, we're going to be exploring the world of authentic relating and communication. I've been diving into this wonderful course, which I'm actually going to put on the in the description below. It's an incredible course. I could not recommend it more. It's I love it. It's really profound. It's changed my life and up-leveled my communication to literally the next level. It doesn't matter where you're at. It just fully upgraded me. It's I think it was $75 for a month. If you're paying month by month, it's $65. If you're doing 6 months, whatever. It's anywhere between $60 and $70 for a month subscription. And this course is basically an authentic, they call it relational inquiry. It's basically a relational meditation. It's how do we actually start connecting with people from a space of really deep groundedness and centeredness and depth instead of this kind of superficial world that we normally connect within. And we'll dive into this in just a moment. But this course basically is whether or not you want to actually facilitate is kind of a facilitator's training. And it's all online. They have, I think, in-person things, but right now they're focused online. And they have live classes every day. They have 3 or 4 live classes every day where groups are meeting and doing this practice, and you get to meet some really good people. And it actually surprised me the level of intimacy that can be created over a computer. That was it's consistently surprising me. And obviously, for me at least, there's no there is no comparison to being in person. It's just a completely different experience. But at the same time, I've just noticed an unbelievable access to intimacy, connecting with these really incredible people, using these epic techniques and concepts. So it's called the Connection Institute. And I'll put the stuff down below. But throughout this course, I've just learned some really incredible topics and concepts that we're going to bring in 2 or 3 of them today and jump in. So yeah, thank you guys for being here, and I'm really excited to share this. This is what's fully incorporating into my world right now, and it's completely changed my relationships. And yeah, it's just really opened up a new level of being human. So let's dive in. So let's take 3 deep breaths. Breathing in just all the crazy stuff that's happened to you in your life. And exhale all the peace and love and harmony that exists within you. And inhale all the bullshit, all the ads and all the fake news and lies, and exhale all the truth and love back into the world. And wherever you are, I just want to invite you to already notice something about your physical body, whether it's touching the ground, your feet are on the ground, or your back is resting against something. Start to tune in maybe to the temperature of your body or any noises around you, and just find the present moment within you and outside of you. Maybe your thoughts are running, maybe you're noticing that you're in your head, maybe you're noticing your heart beating. But just finding a moment to like be in yourself, to be in this body. And what does that mean? What are the sensations that are moving through? What are the smells that are passing by? The sound of the tractor in my background. So as we're now kind of in our bodies and ready to receive, I just want to welcome you into a few agreements. And these are some of the agreements within authentic relating. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But one agreement is to welcome everything. That no matter what comes up in the next however long we'll be together, I just want to invite you to welcome it. Whether that's like an annoying noise, or maybe like getting confused and not really understanding something, and just welcome that confusion and welcome that new experience and that discomfort. And like, what does it look like and what does it feel like in our body to just say like everything is welcome. So it's like putting a little bubble around us for this period of time, like a laboratory, and just saying, okay, cool, everything's welcome. I want to test out and experiment and be curious about the things that happen. That's welcoming everything. The next thing I want to invite is, we call it like honoring ourselves while honoring the other. It's this really beautiful paradox. So what does honoring myself look like? If I need water, I'm going to go get a glass of water. If I need to move my body, I'm going to move my body. If I have to go to the bathroom, I'll go to the bathroom. If I need to pause the recording, I'll pause the recording. Like, take your time and really listen to what your body needs. And at the same time, honoring the other is doing that with consideration to anyone around us. So even already being, am I listening to this out loud? And if so, are people around me? Have I asked consent, or am I kind of like encroaching on their experience? So usually considering the other comes down to like a very simple idea of just like asking, like, hey, are you open to receiving a hug? Or like, would you like a hug? The last thing that I want to invite is, it's like a really beautiful idea. And it's like, it builds off of honoring myself and the other, and it builds off of welcoming everything. And it's just kind of like leaning into an edge. And there's this beautiful idea of like, if you think of like a campfire, and if we stand too far, if we're standing in the fire, we're like burning our legs. And if we're standing too far away from the fire, we are cold. It's just like cold, and we're not getting any heat at all. And so there's this like really beautiful space, this like window of space where we're standing close enough to the fire that we're actually like consistently warm. And that's what I want to offer, that there's this like right out of our comfort zone, there's this place where it's like a growth zone. And so there might be topics or ideas here or invitations here that might make you feel a little uncomfortable or might push your edge. And I want to just offer you to like really find your edge, which will be different than everybody else's, and gently like lean into it and see what that feels like. And know when your edge is, and know when no, I'm in the fire right now and I need to back it off a little bit. And know when I'm actually in the cold space and I need to step forward a little bit. So I want to just invite you into like whatever concepts or invitations to lean into your edge and see, maybe try them on and see what it feels like. So let's start with those 3 agreements. And now we have our little container. We have a container that we're starting off with, and we're going to talk about relating. and we're going to talk about relationships, and we're going to talk about communication and how we use communication. So the first layer of this I want to kind of take apart is these like three levels of communication, 3 types of communication that we all use on a regular basis. So the first type is data. It's like sharing information and informational sharing. So it's like, okay, my name is Bodhi. I changed my name recently. I have a sister. I grew up in Kansas. I moved to Israel. All these things are just information about me. That's the first level. It's just informational sharing. Any data points or facts about me. The next level is like personal or emotional, and that's kind of like anything about my history or story, any emotional experiences I have or have had in the past or the future. So how I felt yesterday, what was going on this morning. This morning, I had like a really nice, relaxing morning. I got to do my practice, and I feel like really rejuvenated from that. That would be like emotional or personal. So those first 2 layers are where most of us stay. That's like where most of us kind of live in and exist in. And informational also is kind of like theories or ideas of like how we see the world and kind of just like our beliefs. That's also kind of in these first 2 as well. And these aren't like bad places to be. But the idea is when we stay in, like, these 2 aren't the most intimate experiences we can have with other people. They're kind of like talking about other things. They're talking about things that are outside the present moment. And what relational inquiry offers us is another layer, which is called relational. And relational is anything like a conversation or anything we're speaking about that's happening in the present moment and that's happening between us right now. Like that's alive. They call it like alive within me. Like what's alive in you? What's coming up inside of you right now? So like, for example, something that's coming up inside me right now is just like wanting to be clear. Like I'm hoping that I'm noticing that I'm like having a hope that I'm clear and not wanting to like bore people and wanting whoever's listening to this to like get it and be like really inspired. So I'm also noticing just this, desire to like share. And I'm also noticing, I'm like seeing this tractor coming closer and I'm like, fuck, like I have like a 2-minute window till the noise comes back and I'm sitting outside and I'm like, is this, unprofessional that I like don't have a studio and I'm just like sitting in a fucking field. Like all of that's coming up for me right now in this moment. And I notice like the second I like look inward, I just see like this whole landscape of things. And I don't know about you, and I'm imagining, but like what I even noticed in myself is when I was speaking about this morning or when I was speaking about facts about myself, that, oh yeah, my name's Bodhi, I was this, I was that. I got a little bored, like even my own eyes glazed over a little bit. But then I moved into this, like, what's actually happening for me right now? And I'm even feeling it now. My like voice is getting more excited and I'm more engaged with my own language. And I was like revealing things that I'm like, wow, like, how do I feel about like not having a studio? Like that's a whole thing. Just like having this podcast on the road and just being like totally having to trust the universe that the universe is going to like give me a place to like record where it's like quiet enough. And all of a sudden it's just like open. So what I noticed is in this like relational example that I gave, I just like lit up a lot more. And that's the idea, is that when we spend more time in the relational aspect of communication, of what's alive between us right now, what's coming up for me right now in this moment, that a deeper intimacy becomes like immediately available. And just like access to this space, this relational kind of like language, it's like a new language, which is like revealing my inner experience and then checking in with other people and seeing what their experience is like in this moment. It creates like a great deal of vulnerability and jumping into the unknown. It takes like a great deal of like letting go of knowing what's going to happen and kind of just being like, I don't know what's about to happen. And then all of a sudden like life opens up. It's like incredible. So the idea is that these first 2, this data and this personal, are wonderful. And even more so when they're actually, supporting relational. It's like, how can we get the rest of our language the rest of our sharing and the rest of our communication to support what's coming up for me right now, though. So like earlier this morning, I had like a really awesome yoga session, and I'm noticing how rejuvenated I am in this moment because of that. And I'm feeling so relaxed and relieved that I actually have time to do my practice, and it's like really healthy for me. And yeah, I'm just like, I'm noticing how much energy I have now. And yeah, it actually gave me the space to do this podcast, which is really amazing. And I'm just realizing right now how important my like morning practice is. So that would be an example of like using this morning's experience to kind of segue into what's actually coming up for me right now. And yeah, let's take a deep breath there and just kind of like let that sink in. Cool. So we have data sharing, we have personal sharing, and then we have relational sharing. Other examples to invite in relational sharing would be like if I'm sitting with someone and just saying like, hey, how are you feeling in this relationship right now? Like, are you enjoying this moment? Are you feeling bored? You might even say like, hey, I'm noticing like your eyes are a little bit like avoidant. What are you feeling right now? Or like, I'm noticing that you're looking over there for a while. You know, what's going on with you? Is there like, you know, what's happening for you in this moment? These questions can invite like a deeper looking into what's like coming up in my personal experience. Asking questions is a really good technique to really invite that space. You can also share from yourself of just saying, hey, wow, I'm really enjoying this moment with you. How are you feeling right now? Like, what are you feeling in our relationship, in our connection in this moment? And it might feel really edgy. You might be like, that's a super weird thing to say, but I'm telling you, like, it actually it's unbelievably powerful, and it's actually like a really amazing experience to like catch people off guard. And they're like, whoa, no one's ever asked me that before. And it just opens a completely new way of relating instead of talking about these like same fucking things over and over again. I'm like so tired of talking about the weather and talking about where I'm from and talking about this and that. So it just completely throws everything for it's like, whoa. So that's relational sharing. That's like what's going on for us in this moment right now. So now we're going to introduce two ideas that maybe three, we'll see, that are going to like help us step into that. And I'm going to give invitations for each one. So I'm going to give like little, not like challenges, but just kind of little invitations to say like, hey, maybe try this on for today or this week or for an hour. And the first one I really like, it's called social like proprioception, they call it. And proprioception, for those who aren't familiar, is like, it's our body's way of finding itself in space. So we have this ability, like our bodies have this ability to like kind of see like depth. And even though I'm not looking at my hand, I have this kind of idea of where my hand is in relationship to the things around me, how far away I am from things, like depth and height and things like this. So that's called proprioception. It's like our ability to know where we are within relationship to things around us. So social proprioception is a similar idea. It's like we're kind of consistently throughout our life trying to assess like how close or how far other people are from us. And it happens, we see it in relationships a lot. People might say like, I feel like you're really distant. And that's kind of like asserting like, I feel like you're far away from me, like emotionally, like socially. And we have these kind of like ways to gauge, and we kind of make assumptions. So, like, why would someone assume that you're distant? Like, they might be looking away, or they might not be focused on you, or they might be kind of like avoiding, or they might be not calling you back. And so we like notice these behaviors, and then we assume things. So what's really great about socioproprioception is that we can check in, and we can also help other people know where we're at in comparison to them. So for example, when someone shares something and I'm feeling like really close to them, I'll share that with them. I'll say, wow, like after you shared that, I feel really close to you. Like, I'm feeling a lot of joy. I'm feeling really engaged with you right now. I really enjoyed that. I'm feeling like more intimate with you in this moment. And it kind of like, even though people actually like receive that consciously, it also is like subconsciously, it's kind of programming in a beautiful way. It's kind of helping them figure out what they're doing that brings people closer to them, and vice versa, what brings people further away. And so without even like needing to know the model of authentic relating or these models, we can just tune in and say like, wow, I'm feeling close to you right now. Oh, I'm feeling further away from you right now. And those are just two ways of letting other people know where we're at in comparison to them. Hey, I'm noticing I'm feeling really closed off after that. And that's edgy. Saying that is really edgy. I'm finding within myself, it's quite easy for me to say, I'm feeling really close to you, but it's also, it's quite challenging for me. It's been an edge for me to say, I'm actually feeling a little distant from you, or I'm feeling a little disengaged from you after hearing that. And I'd like to feel a bit closer to you. And how does that feel to receive right now? So there's like 3 parts of this, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper. So like, let's say I would share how close or far away I am. I would share like maybe this desire, like the reason I'm sharing in the first place is to connect. So I'd share my intention as well. Like, I want to connect more with you, and that's why I'm sharing this. So yeah, I'm feeling a little far away from you after what you just shared, and I'd like to, create more intimacy. How does it feel to hear that? Like, or how did you feel during that while you were sharing? I'm feeling distant from you. How were you feeling while you were sharing it? Were you interested in what you were sharing? And so that next piece is checking in. They would call it like weaving a shared reality. It's like, this is my perception of what is like what happened. What was your perception in that moment? So I'll share like my distance. I'll share like my desire to connect deeper. And then I'll share, and then I'll check in with them. Well, what is it like to hear that? Is one way to check in. What was your experience while you were sharing is another way. And it's kind of like opening this door to like a deeper connection. Now the idea is like, when am I sharing these things? When I actually have a desire to connect deeper with someone. I wouldn't just say like, I'm feeling really distant from you. And like that might actually hurt somebody. And it's okay if someone is hurt by that. But if my intention is pure, meaning that my intention is to create a deeper intimacy, then I'm accounted for. Then I'm like clean in that. And so I just want to offer, like, this isn't a way to kind of just like shit on people. Some people do use it for that. Like, the more awareness we get, the more power we have, and we can use these things to like shut people down. But the entire purpose of all of this for me is to create a deeper intimacy, and I just want to like lead with that. So the purpose here is like, let's say there's the entire, I guess, concept or like a huge backbone of like authentic relating and the style of connection is to create a balance. There's like a spectrum of like expressing myself fully. And then on the other side is like creating a really safe container and safety, high safety and high expression. So a lot of these are so multifaceted. Like, how do I express my deep truth while creating a really safe space for others to receive that and others to express their truth? And that's like, we want high safety, high psychological safety, and high expression, high truth, higher levels of kind of like revealing our inner experience. So like the last little technique within that can actually like really help is asking, hey, would you be open? This is like the funniest question. And this already opens such an interesting door. Someone shares a story with me, and I want to, like, I've never told them how close or far away from them I am. And so this is like a new experience for us both. So someone's like, yeah, and then when I was 16, I blah, 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 blah. And I want to share my experience. I might even just ask them. I'll check in. Hey, would you be open to me sharing my experience of listening to that? Boom. It's like a little moment of micro consent, they call it. Checking in and getting micro consent. And they're like, whoa, already, like, I've never been asked that question. Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I'd like to hear what your experience was. And then you might say, like, I'm actually like feeling a little bit distant from you. And yeah, I noticed particularly like at this moment, I disengaged. And yeah, I'm curious what was happening for you at that moment. And already it's like, whoa, this is super vulnerable. We're like really intimate right now. I'm already feeling way more connected. So that's like our first level. That's like social proprioception, letting people know how close or far away from them we feel in service of creating a deeper connection. And we can check in to hear their reality at the end. And we can also check in before and see if they're open to us sharing, because this can actually be quite intense for some people, especially if we're giving them information that's like news that might not be fun for them to hear, like that we are feeling distant. Cool, that's social proprioception. So I want to like invite, like the invitation for that is to a few times this week, or as much as you can this week, maybe like put a highlight on letting people know how close or far away from them you are after they share something. And just see what that's like. See if there's discomfort there. See what it feels like to check in with somebody and ask them if they're open to receiving that share. And see what it feels like to like step into that edge and really not know what's going to happen. And where does it go? And if you want to like message me on Facebook or whatever, or on WhatsApp and tell me how it goes, I'd love to hear. It's like super exciting to like step into these containers and any challenges that came up maybe. Cool. So let's open this next little container. I really like this one. It's called dissonance. This is something I really have to work hard on. This is something that's quite challenging for me in my life. And next week, I'm actually putting an emphasis into dissonance. Sharing dissonance. So dissonance is an idea of like, let's say you're at this like, I'm at a workshop and everyone's having like a really great time. Sometimes people will say like, wow, this is like so interesting. I'm like really enjoying this class. Dissonance is sharing like an unpopular opinion, like an opinion that's actually different, like sharing your experience when it differs from others. So someone's having a really great time and like 4 or 5 people are like, wow, this has been like the best course I've ever had. And then I'm not enjoying this at all. I'm feeling really frustrated and I'm not really getting it. And I'm feeling kind of left out. And it's interesting because I'm finding myself like it's really hard for me to share dissonance because I don't know if it's like a belief, like a core belief of mine or like a conditioned belief that like I have to be like everyone else to receive love or to feel connected. And so sometimes I won't share my actual experience because I'm like afraid to ruin the vibe or that people won't like me. But what I've actually found is when I share dissonance, people often like respect me a lot more, and people are often like, oh wow, that's like, thank you for saying that, and actually we can actually do something to change the situation, or wow, we're actually just really happy you shared so we can know where you're at as well. And so dissonance is like a really powerful tool to bring like a broader understanding of like the world around us. That everybody actually has these different experiences. And when you share your dissonance, especially in a group, but in general, even like a partnership of like, yeah, actually, like I'm not wanting to do that tonight. How does that feel to hear? I always check in at the end. But when we share that, it actually gives other people permission to step into their dissonance, to step into their individuality, because that's really what it is. It's like I'm stepping into me being an individual with my own experience. And like this incredible thing about being an individual as part of a whole is that we're all unique. And like what a beautiful thing to give other people the gift to say, like it's okay to have your own experience. It's okay to be unique. And this is me being unique. And the stronger we stand in ourselves, the more we actually empower others to like step up into their selves. And then we get like this more diverse whole, this more diverse group of just like unique individuals standing together. So that's like sharing dissonance. And again, like these practices, one thing I recommend is I always like to check in afterwards. That's called weaving a shared reality. So weaving a shared reality is I share my reality and then I check in with the other person's reality, and then we find kind of this middle ground of like, wow, okay, this is what was happening for each of us during the same experience. And now we have this shared understanding of where the other one was at. And it brings kind of like a larger awareness of the world around us. I think as a whole, this is like a huge generalization, but we tend to believe, I'll speak for myself, I often forget the extent at which other people are having different experiences, like completely different experiences of life than I am. I tend to assume that if I had a really good time, then other people probably had a really good time too. But actually, people seem to be in very, very different places. That's dissonance. Can you hear the beat in the background? Okay, cool. We're going to introduce one more concept, and then maybe next week we'll open up a few more. So this one's called projecting. Projecting is something we do all the time. Like, we see and perceive reality, and then we project our view of reality onto other people. So it's like another way of looking at this is it's quite similar to like judgments and like sharing judgments. Like a projection is kind of what I think is happening. So a lot of us do this unconsciously. Like most of us seem to do, the most people I've connected with do this unconsciously. They say like, wow, you're a really nice guy. And that's like a projection. Because what they're really saying is, like, in the interactions that I've had with you, I've really enjoyed connecting with you. And I'm assuming that that you have connections with lots of people that are like this, and that you're nice. So I'm like putting a label on you. It's like projecting is essentially labeling somebody. And that could be like a good label or like a perceived negative or positive label. It doesn't really matter. Either way, it's still like a projection. It's saying that like, oh, this is who you are. And there's many different types of projecting and assuming, but we'll keep it simple today. It's kind of just, again, like putting a label on someone. And we do this a lot. I see it coming up in my relationships. Like I'll project stories onto people. Sometimes someone can just look like somebody else that you know, and you'll project an entire story on them, and that will actually like completely change how you relate to them. We assume that people are like this or like that because of one or two times seeing them do something. But the truth is that people are like incredibly dynamic and change all the time. So a really great way to project more consciously, there's like a really good like tool set. It's like even just like a sentence structure that helps. It's like training wheels, and then eventually you kind of like leave the structure and you can do it on your own and in your own words. But one is like notice. We just start with noticing. So to notice is like any observable, like observable physical thing that I'm seeing. So things that I would notice is like I notice that the wind is blowing, or I'm noticing the sound of the wind near me. I'm noticing that I'm like playing with my earring right now. I'm noticing like my earring is in my hands. That was the first moment that I actually noticed it. I'm like moving I have a little rubber band on it. I'm noticing I'm about to sneeze, or I'm like noticing it. It's like even that noticing I'm about to sneeze is already going too far. This is like great. I'm actually like noticing a tingling sensation in my nose, and I'm imagining that I have to sneeze. And I didn't sneeze. And so that was like a really good example of how even I as practicing this quite often, I still project all the time. I still make assumptions. I like jump too far. So noticing is like as rudimentary as you can get. And even I noticed like, I said that I was playing with my earring, but like, let's get it even more simple. I noticed that I'm like holding my earring between my fingers. And whatever, I could say I'm playing with it, but yeah, I noticed that I'm sitting on the ground. I'm noticing like a coldness around my butt cheeks, and I'm like imagining that the ground is wet. I probably didn't pee my pants. So that's noticing. I can notice things within myself. I can notice things around the outside world. So what I want to invite you to do is just take a few moments to practice noticing. So I want to invite you to notice what's happening around you. So I notice the sound of the wind. I notice there's a wall next to me. I can notice sensations. I notice my heart beating. It's these like observable things. I notice I'm having like tension in my chest or like an expansiveness in my belly. Or I'm noticing like some tiredness or some like heaviness around my eyes. I'm noticing I'm even getting like a little bit, I'm feeling a little fatigued, and I'm kind of thinking that the podcast should end soon. I'm like noticing some fatigue. I'm noticing this tractor getting closer. So our first step is noticing something that I can actually like perceive with my eyes. It might be about someone else. Hey, I noticed that your eyes are looking away, or your eyes are looking in the corner. I notice your tone of voice changed. I notice that your body seems to be moving a lot. And even that's like a projection. I notice that your body's moving. I notice that you're getting up and sitting down. You've gotten up and sat down 3 times. These are like observable, kind of like facts, like undisputable. When I say a lot or a large amount, this is already like a judgment. So I want to get like as undisputable as possible, as like factual as possible. And then from that space, we add the next piece. This is like the projection piece or the assumption piece. And this is like the meat, where it's like, I am noticing that you're looking to your left, and I'm imagining, that's it, I'm imagining that. Or I'm assuming that or interpreting that. It's any of these words that are like, and from that I'm making meaning of it. Because that's the truth, is I'm seeing one thing and my brain interprets that as you're bored. So this could look like, oh, I'm noticing your eyes are looking up in the corner and I'm imagining that you might be bored. Is that what's happening? So then there's these 3 pieces. I notice, I imagine, and then I check in. Is there truth in that for you? Or what is going on for you? Is that what's happening? And it's giving them the space to actually check in. Actually, yeah, I'm a little bored. Oh, cool. What, like, and already there's like this connection. I'm like smiling already. There's no one even in front of me, and I'm feeling more connected. So it's this like 3-part puzzle of like, oh, I'm noticing that you're getting up and down. I'm imagining you might have to go to the bathroom. Is that what's happening? And they might be like, oh no, I actually like broke my leg last week. And you're like, oh, that's completely different than I thought. And I start to see that I get shit wrong all the time. I was connecting with my friend when I was back in Kansas a few weeks ago. And I was telling her like, wow, I'm seeing that you're like kind of like fidgeting with the dog. Like I'm noticing that you're giving some attention to the dog. And I'm wondering, like I'm noticing in myself, I'm like frustrated. And I'm wondering if you're like paying attention to me. And she was actually like, I was like, yeah, what's going on for you? And she's like, wow, it's actually funny you say that. Like, I'm finding that when I play with the dog, when someone else is talking, I can actually listen to them more because my body needs to fidget with something. And when it doesn't, I get a little bit restless and I get annoyed, and it makes it hard for me to listen. And after that, I noticed that it didn't bother me at all. Like I had this amazing like reveal and context that when she was playing with the dog, it actually meant she was listening to me deeper. And it totally changed the experience. And a lot of these things are quite subconscious, like they're sub-perceptible. But when we really look into what's happening in the present moment, and I'm looking to see what's coming up for me, a lot of these things are revealed and cleaned. And all these like tiny little blocks that we didn't even realize we had in connecting with this person that's in front of us are just completely like wiped away. It's like cleaning the whiteboard. And we call it like getting rid of unfinished business, like clearing out unfinished business. So let's take a deep inhale and exhale if you like. Cool. Let's do a little recap of, we had these like 3 types of communication. We had data, personal, and relational. And relational is where we get to like the intimacy, this depth in communication. We dove into social proprioception of sharing, how close or far away from someone we feel after something they shared. And then checking in with them. We dove into sharing dissonance and sharing an opinion that might be not as popular as everybody else's, and the value of that. And here's a tractor. And lastly, we talked about how to project in a more conscious way, how to notice, project, and check in. And the invitation there is to ask people if you can project onto them. And then go ahead, notice, imagine, and check in. So what I want to offer for each of these practices is getting consent beforehand, just asking someone, hey, how would you feel if I projected onto you for a minute? And seeing where that leads you. So thank you guys for listening today. I hope that there was some like juice here that like got you excited and got you curious, and maybe even like made you a little bit nervous or like scared of like, I don't know if I can do that. That's really weird and edgy and like what, I don't know what's gonna happen. And I just like want to deeply invite you into stepping into the unknown and getting curious and doing something that's a little bit different. So thank you all for listening. This is me coming to you from Sweden. And next week I'll maybe dive into like another layer of a few more concepts. So if you like this, then check it out next week. Sending you guys a lot of love. I think I'm gonna do a lot more of these podcasts, just me. I actually just like really love sharing what's kind of coming up and these different ideas and concepts. And if I find a really good guest, I'll have them on. But I think I'm gonna go more of like 70-30 of me just sharing some interesting stuff that I'm finding. So thank you guys for listening. Sending you a lot of love. And yeah, maybe like I'm gonna make a funny face, like a weird face, and I want to encourage you to do the same wherever you are in the world. Just like do a weird thing with your face. You know, you can make a sound too. Sending you a lot of love, and I'll see you next week. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you all for listening, for giving your hearts and minds and souls to this moment. I hope you learned something that you can take into your life and integrate to make a better life for yourself and the others around you. That's the point of this show. Under the Bodhi tree is where I'd like to go. Come sit and join me. Yes.